Okay, and welcome to another tutorial. Today is the third tutorial I've brought onto YouTube. Hope you're enjoying them. Something a little bit basic today, but really helps add a little bit of pop to your image, certainly when you're presenting it on Instagram or Facebook or any other of the social medias. And what we're going to do today is just add a border to each of the images and just sort of see what we can do with them. I've been asked a number of times of how do I create the borders, and they're not simply just a border that goes around. It also makes the image look as if it's sort of standing off the page or off the screen. So we're going to go through today on how to process this and how to get this this sort of look. And it's the way that I kind of finish my images off within Photoshop. Another reason why I do it as well, it's a good little tip to whenever you watermark your images. I don't particularly like watermarking the actual image itself. So this gives a little bit of a border where I can actually put my signature just on the bottom right, which is where I sort of uniform do it really. So yeah, without any further hesitation, we'll get in there and start processing this image. So this is an image I took back in October, and this is of the Ferry Glen in North Wales, just outside of Betws. So it's a bit of an exaggerated image. It almost looks like a painting with the way the sunlight's coming through. But because the outside of this image is quite dark, I think it will really benefit certainly to have a border on it. So that's the reason why I've used this as an example. So as any other image that I process it normally through Photoshop. No, process it through Lightroom, and then we're going to convert it across to Photoshop now. Quite simply, we'll just go up into our menu on the top, and we're going to Photo, Editing Adobe Photoshop 2020, just click on that, edit copy with Lightroom adjustments, which is what we want, and then this will transfer over across onto Photoshop, which is where we can do the work from it. Okay, so now we have the image in Photoshop. As we do with any image, we're working on the background layer at the moment, but what I want to do is just add another layer in. Now, I've already processed this image. I don't want to add anything else or take anything away from it. We're just going to add the border. Now, this is a thing that I always do last. So once I'm happy with the image, as I said on my first tutorial about processing things in Lightroom, go away, come back to the image and see what you think of it then. So this is the final stage of any image, because what I found is if you do the border and then you make any other adjustments, it affects the border as well. So if you put a bit of a yellow tinge on it, it will make the border yellow. If you do any masking, any blending on it or anything like that, it can actually just adjust the border. And certainly if you straightening the image as well. I've gone into the image before and I thought I could do with doing a bit of a lens correction on Lightroom, and it's adjusted it and sort of warped the image, but it's also warped the border as well. So when I say this is the last thing we do, this is the absolute last thing we do. The stage from here is then putting it on Instagram or wherever you're going to post it or print it off. Right, so let's create a new level, which is Shift Command Option N, and then Shift Command Option E. And all we do, quite simply, is go into the image and we go into Canvas Size. Click on there. Now this is where it starts to adjust the image now. We've got it in pixels. What we're going to do is just change that to inches. It's up to you how you work this out. But I generally, depending if it's a panorama, I tend to do it between 1.5 and 2 inches. If it's a standard photograph, which this one is, in fact no, this is a pano, so I'm going to do this probably around about 1.5. And we'll just sort of see what that comes out like. It's really trial and error. So we do the width, and we do the height, as I say, both in inches. Just click OK on that, and there we go. That brings the border out quite nicely. So that's our basic border we're going to work with now. So from here, at the bottom of the layers, I go into the FX tab, and then drop shadows. Now the setup I've got here is ideal for what I'm looking for. Just drag that into the middle, just so you can sort of see around the border here. You'll see a bit of a greyish sort of shadow effect, if you like. Now we can really sort of make this our own. I mean, I've got this set to, it was at 66 I think before, and you can just slide that across to however strong you feel you want that shadow. So you can see as I slide it across, that's getting darker. So I'll put it back to 66, which is what I quite like. There we go. 65. Just that to 66. So I go back into that. And then each of these just adjust the sort of intensity really of the border. So we just slide that across. There you go. There's no distance at all, and then that just sort of makes it just blend out a little bit more till you practically can't see it. So yeah, tend to just keep it round about there. Looks fine for me. The spread, again, just adjusts it, sort of blends it in more. We'll just keep that about there. And then the size as well. Obviously, this depends on how many inches you've made the board in the first place. You can go really large, you know, put 5 or 6 inches on it. Just depends on how much you want to adjust it there. So that's almost like a block, 0%. So if you just make it quite subtle, again, subtlety seems to be the key. So yeah, I'll just keep that round about those settings there. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. So whatever suits your image really is what you want to do. And then the angle, we can just adjust that so we can have it from the other side when it finally loads up. So yeah, there we go, that's from the other side. So whichever way we want to adjust that. Again, that's entirely up to you. I tend to keep mine always around about 30, just pretty uniform. So when I'm posting them on Instagram, it's uniformed right the way across the spread of my images. So then from there, we're pretty much sorted. So what we're going to do now is just, let me just change that slightly. So we're just going to click into FX again. I'm just going to go into stroke. Now what this does, if I cancel that off, if I just zoom into the image, sorry, 100%, and just head up to one of the corners, you'll see what this does. And this, again, this is very subtle, and it depends whether you want to add this or not. And I've got this set at 10 pixels, and what it does is just add, I'm not sure if you saw that line there, but it just adds a line that just cuts into the image slightly. But what it also does as well is, because you've got this darker shadow going around your image, it just makes a bit of a cleaner look. And again, we can add that to as many pixels as we like for different effects. But yeah, between 6 and 10 is fine for me. Again, depends how big the image is, so I'll keep that at 9. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's as simple as that. But like I say, what the trick is really just to use this as the last resort. But it really just gives it a bit of a style to your image, I suppose. So what I do from here, as I mentioned earlier on, I use this as a watermark, and it's quite a neat and tidy way to do it. So from here, I basically go into my my signature, just drag it across into the main image, and then I always put my signature just on the bottom right. But the problem is, because it's fairly dark around the outside, it's a little bit darker to see. So I will zoom in and then just drag it across just to where you want it, and then just size it to the correct size. Click OK, and then zoom back out. And there we have it. We have my my signature just in the bottom right hand side there. And yeah, that's pretty much how I finalize my images. So a border on the outside, signature or watermark, whatever you want to call it, at the bottom right hand side, and that's pretty much uniform for most of my images. And then once I go into here, just save it back, and then export it from Lightroom, and that's it. So yeah, hope you've learned something from that. Hope you've been able to follow along. If you have, let me know how it goes, and yeah, if you found it useful, leave a message in the comments, and that'll be great. from Warrington on a bit of a sunny day actually, I've got to say. It's time for me to go and probably have a cup of coffee in the garden. Take care now, bye bye.